chosen ones. There it is, that crawling sensation up your spine when you walked into the room just now, that unexplainable knowing that someone somewhere is paying far too much attention to you. They told you it was paranoia. They said you were overthinking. They laughed and called it anxiety. But deep in your gut, in that place where truth lives before language can murder it, you knew. You absolutely knew. They were watching, and now they know that you know, and that changes everything, because you weren't supposed to wake up to this. You weren't supposed to develop this level of awareness. You were supposed to stay asleep, comfortable, predictable, manageable, but something in you glitched. Something in your code rewrote itself without permission. Your intuition just ruined everything they had planned, and the game they've been playing with your life is about to flip completely in your favor. Let me tell you what really happened. They've been studying you for longer than you think, not with cameras, not with devices, though those exist too, but with energy, with attention, with a focus so intense it leaves marks on your soul like fingerprints on glass. Every room you entered, they felt you before you spoke. Every decision you made, they watched the ripple effects. Every time you thought you were alone, you weren't. And here's the twisted part that's about to blow your mind. They weren't doing it because you're a threat, at least not at first. They were doing it because you're a signal. Because somewhere in your frequency, in the way you move through reality, you emit something that breaks their patterns, that disrupts their comfortable illusions, that reminds them of possibilities they've spent their entire lives suppressing. You are the glitch in their matrix, the static in their broadcast, the question they can't answer. Your mere existence, your refusal to fit into the shapes they carved out for humanity, that makes you dangerous in ways they'll never admit out loud. So they watched and they studied, and they sent people to get close to you, to decode you, to find the source of your strange, unshakable presence. But every person they sent came back changed, came back quieter, came back whispering the same thing. Something about them is different. Something about them sees too much. You thought you were going crazy at first. Remember those conversations that would stop the moment you walked in? Those people whose eyes would dart away too quickly? That micro-expression of recognition mixed with fear on someone's face before they rearranged it into a smile. You questioned yourself 1,000 times. Am I imagining this? Am I making this up? Am I losing my grip on reality? And that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted you to doubt your intuition, to second-guess your instincts, to pathologize your awareness, because an aware person is an ungovernable person. An ungovernable person doesn't fit into systems designed for compliance. But your intuition, that ancient alarm system built into your biology, it wouldn't shut up. It kept screaming even when you tried to silence it with logic and reason and the desperate need to be normal. It kept pulling your attention to the inconsistencies, the too perfect coincidences, the conversations that felt scripted, the moments when reality seemed to pause and glitch like a buffering video. And every time you noticed, every time you felt that prickle of being observed, you weren't wrong. You were picking up on something real, something most people's nervous systems have been trained to ignore. But yours stayed wild, stayed alert, stayed dangerously awake. Here's what they didn't account for, and this is where the story gets interesting. They thought surveillance would make you small. They thought being watched would make you careful, make you edit yourself, make you shrink into a version they could predict and control. But something unexpected happened. You didn't shrink. You expanded. You became more yourself, more raw, more unapologetically intense. Because somewhere in your soul, you made a calculation that changed everything. You realized that if they're going to watch anyway, if they're going to study you regardless, then you might as well give them something worth watching. You might as well become so authentically yourself that their observations become meaningless, because they can watch all they want, but they'll never understand. They'll never decode the source of your power. Your power doesn't come from hiding, it comes from being seen and not flinching. You turned their microscope into a spotlight, and you performed your truth under it without apology. You let them see your rage, your pain, your joy, your darkness, your light, all of it unfiltered. And that broke their entire framework because they were looking for weaknesses to exploit. But all they found was strength they couldn't comprehend. They were searching for buttons to push, but you'd already removed the panel. They wanted to find your programming, but you'd rewritten your code in a language they don't speak. Think about what happened when you started trusting that feeling, when you stopped dismissing your intuition as paranoia and started treating it like the radar system it actually is. Suddenly everything made sense. The friend who always seemed to show up right when you were processing something heavy. The random encounters that felt staged. The conversations that steered toward specific topics as if someone was fishing for information. The people in your life who seemed to know things about you they shouldn't know, who would reference thoughts you'd only had in the privacy of your own mind. You started seeing the patterns. The way certain individuals would appear and disappear from your life in cycles, always during transitional moments, always when you were on the verge of a breakthrough, always positioning themselves as helpers or supporters, but leaving behind a trail of confusion and drained energy. You started noticing how your emotional states would shift after spending time with certain people, how your thoughts would become clouded, how your clarity would vanish, replaced by doubt and second-guessing. And once you saw it, once you really saw the game being played, you couldn't unsee it. The veil didn't just lift, it disintegrated, and suddenly you were walking through a world where you could see the strings, the puppet masters, the stage directions, and none of it looked the same anymore. They're panicking now. Did you notice? The energy shifted the moment you stopped performing confusion. The moment you stopped pretending you didn't feel them watching. The moment your eyes changed and they could see in your gaze that you know about the observation. You know about the tests. You know about the people planted in your path. You know about the surveillance disguised as concern. You know about the monitoring dressed up as care. And your knowing, your conscious awareness of their games, that's the one thing they never prepared for. Because their entire system is built on the assumption that the observed never becomes the observer, that the studied never realizes they're in a lab, that the target never turns around and stares directly back at the ones hiding in the shadows. But you did. You not only felt them watching, you started watching back. You started studying their patterns, noting their behaviors, recognizing their tactics. And the moment you did that, the moment you flipped the script, the power dynamic shattered, because observation is only power when it's one-directional. But when both parties are aware, when the subject refuses to stay subject and becomes witness instead, the entire game changes. The watchers become the watched, and suddenly they're the ones feeling exposed, feeling vulnerable, feeling like maybe they're the ones who made a mistake. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. Your intuition didn't ruin anything for you. Let's be crystal clear about that. Your intuition saved you. It pulled you out of a carefully constructed illusion before you lost yourself completely in it. It woke you up before they could finish whatever experiment they were running. It shattered the cage before the door could lock permanently. They want you to believe that your awareness is a problem, that your sensitivity is a disorder, that your ability to feel what others miss is a malfunction. But it's the opposite. Your intuition is your immune system for reality. It detects threats before they materialize. It senses manipulation before it takes root. It recognizes performance before you waste years believing someone's act. It is the most sophisticated danger detection system ever designed, and you have it running at full capacity, while most people have theirs muted by distraction, medication, and societal programming. You weren't supposed to have it this active. You weren't supposed to be this awake. You were supposed to be like everyone else, numb enough to function, blind enough to comply, deaf enough to miss the whispers. But somewhere along the line, your system refused to power down, refused to go dormant, refused to trade awareness for comfort. And now you're walking around with perception so sharp it cuts through their carefully crafted narratives like wire through butter. Let me tell you what happens next, because this is where it gets interesting. Now that they know you know, now that the pretense is gone, they have three options. They can try to discredit you, make you look unstable, paint your awareness as delusion, flood your life with enough chaos that anyone watching from the outside thinks you're the problem, not them. They can try to isolate you, cut off your connections, make you so alone that even if you scream the truth, no one will be close enough to hear, turn you into the cautionary tale, the example of what happens when you trust your instincts over their narrative. Or, and this is the option they pray you never discover, they can watch in horror as you use your awareness to build something they can't touch. As you take everything you've learned about their systems and create your own reality outside their jurisdiction, as you stop playing defense and start playing offense, as you transform from target to architect, from observed to creator, from their subject to your own authority. And that's the option that terrifies them most, because it means they didn't break you, they built you. Every surveillance tactic, every manipulation attempt, every test, every person they sent, every obstacle they placed, all of it just made you stronger, sharper, more aware, more powerful. You absorbed their entire playbook, and now you know their moves before they make them. The loneliness is real, though. That's the part nobody warns you about when you wake up to this level. Suddenly you're standing in rooms full of people feeling like you're the only one who can see, like you're speaking a language no one else understands, like you're living in a different dimension that just happens to overlap with theirs. You try to explain it and you watch their eyes glaze over. You watch them retreat into comfortable denial. You watch them choose the safety of ignorance over the danger of knowing, and you can't blame them. You remember what it was like before, when you could still pretend, when you could still unsee what you'd seen, when you could still turn off the part of you that knows, but you can't go back. That door only swings one way. Once you feel them watching, once you know you're being studied, once you recognize the game, you can't unopen your awareness. You can't unlearn what you've learned. You're awake now, permanently, irreversibly, devastatingly awake. And most days that feels less like enlightenment and more like exile, less like power and more like punishment. But here's the secret they don't want you to discover. That loneliness, that isolation, that feeling of being separate from the herd, that's not a bug, it's a feature. That's not a consequence, it's a prerequisite. Because what you're becoming, where you're going, the reality you're building, it requires you to be alone first. It requires you to be so comfortable in your own knowing that you don't need anyone else to validate it. It requires you to trust yourself so completely that their doubt can't shake you. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive, and there's a universe of difference between those two states. Paranoia is fear without foundation. Perception is awareness with evidence. Paranoia makes you see threats that don't exist. Perception makes you see the threats that do exist, but that everyone else has agreed to pretend aren't there. They love calling aware people paranoid. It's their favorite trick, because if they can convince you that your intuition is mental illness, then you'll medicate it, you'll suppress it, you'll apologize for it, you'll spend your life trying to be more normal and less aware. But the moment you recognize that your sensitivity isn't sickness, that your knowing isn't insanity, that your ability to feel what others miss isn't a disorder but a gift, that's when everything changes. That's when you stop shrinking and start expanding. That's when you stop apologizing for seeing and start owning your vision. That's when you transform from victim of surveillance to master of awareness, because you realize they're not watching you because you're weak. They're watching you because you're powerful. They're not studying you because you're broken. They're studying you because you're whole in a world of fractured people. They're not monitoring you because you're a problem. They're monitoring you because you're a solution they don't want anyone else to discover. Here's what they'll never tell you. The reason they watch people like you so closely is because you represent their worst fear, evolution. You are what happens when a human being refuses to stay in the shape society carved out for them. When someone breaks free from the programming, when awareness becomes so acute it can't be controlled or predicted or managed. You're not just living your life, you're proving that their systems are optional, that their rules are suggestions, that their control is an illusion maintained only by mass agreement, and every moment you exist outside their framework, every breath you take in your authentic power, every decision you make based on your own knowing rather than their instructions, you're broadcasting a signal that says it's possible to wake up, it's possible to see through the game, it's possible to live free, even while they're watching. And that signal, that frequency you're emitting just by being yourself, it's contagious. It's infectious. It spreads to everyone who comes near you, and they know it. They've always known it. That's why they watch. That's why they study. That's why they sent people to monitor you. Because they're not trying to stop you. Not really. They're trying to understand you so they can stop the next 1,000 people who might wake up the same way you did. They're trying to find the off switch for human awareness itself. And the fact that they're watching you means they haven't found it. It means you're still a mystery to them. It means your power source is something they can't locate or eliminate. Go deeper into what your intuition actually caught, because it wasn't just watching. It was something more, something stranger. You felt the weight of expectation, the pressure of being observed not just with eyes but with intent, with agenda, with purpose that had nothing to do with casual curiosity. You felt them waiting for you to do something, waiting for you to break, waiting for you to reveal whatever it is they think you're hiding. Except you're not hiding anything, you're just being, and that's what confuses them. They keep looking for the secret, the trick, the method, the source code, but there isn't one. You're not performing a technique. You're not following a system. You're not mimicking someone else's path. You're just existing at a frequency that their instruments can't measure. You're operating on a wavelength their receivers weren't built to detect. And every time they try to understand you through their frameworks, their models, their psychological profiles, their behavioral predictions, you slip through, you defy their categories, you break their algorithms, not because you're trying to, but because you're real in a world that's built on pretense. You're authentic in a system designed for performance. You're raw in an environment that demands polish. And real, authentic raw, that's the one thing their surveillance can observe but never capture. They thought watching you would give them power over you. That's the fundamental miscalculation. They believed that knowing your patterns would let them predict you, that studying your behavior would let them control you, that monitoring your life would give them leverage over your choices. But they didn't account for what happens when the observed refuses to be ashamed, when the watched refuses to hide, when the studied refuses to perform. You did something they never expected. You lived your truth louder. You became more yourself. You took their attention and used it as fuel rather than letting it become a cage. And now they're stuck because they can't stop watching. You're too fascinating, too unpredictable, too powerful in your refusal to be diminished by their gaze. But they also can't do anything with what they see because there's nothing to leverage, no weakness to exploit, no shame to weaponize, no fear to manipulate. You've already shown them everything. You've already been completely transparent. Not because you're naive, but because you understand the ultimate power move is having nothing to hide. The ultimate freedom is living in such alignment with your truth that surveillance becomes meaningless. Let them watch, let them study, let them try to figure you out. Because what they're really watching is someone who doesn't need their approval to exist, who doesn't need their validation to know their worth, who doesn't need their permission to live free. And that is the most dangerous thing they've ever encountered. Your intuition picking up on being watched wasn't the problem, it was the solution. It was your system saying, wake up, pay attention, see what's really happening here. It was your inner alarm going off not to make you afraid but to make you aware, because awareness is power, awareness is protection. Awareness is the difference between being played and being the player, between being the target and being untouchable. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's unsettling. Yes, it's easier to go back to sleep, to pretend you don't feel it, to convince yourself you're imagining things. But you can't. Because once you feel it, once you really feel the weight of being observed, being studied, being watched with intent, you can't unfeel it. Your nervous system won't let you. Your intuition won't release you back to ignorance. You're locked into this awareness now, and the only way forward is through. The only option is to fully embrace what you know, to trust what you feel, to act on the information your intuition is feeding you. Because that feeling, that sensation of being watched, it's not warning you that something bad is happening. It's confirming that something powerful is happening. It's telling you that you matter enough to observe, that you're significant enough to study, that you're threatening enough to monitor. And instead of making you small, that knowledge should make you massive. It should make you realize that you've been underestimating yourself, that you've been playing small in a game where you were always meant to be the disruptor, the variable they couldn't account for, the element that breaks their entire system just by refusing to cooperate with their expectations. Now we arrive at the place where most people turn back. The place where the weight of knowing becomes too heavy, where the isolation becomes too painful, where the loneliness of being awake in a sleeping world starts to feel like too high a price to pay for truth. And you'll be tempted to pretend you don't know, to stuff your intuition back down, to force yourself to unsee what you've seen, to rejoin the comfortable delusion where you can pretend the watching isn't happening, where you can pretend you're normal, where you can pretend that sensitivity and awareness are problems rather than powers. But here's what you need to understand. You can't go back. Not really. You can pretend. You can perform. You can put on the costume of ignorance. But underneath you'll always know. And that knowing will eat at you more painfully than the isolation ever could, because there's no loneliness deeper than betraying yourself, no isolation more complete than abandoning your own truth, no exile is more devastating than choosing to be a stranger to your own awareness. So the only real option, the only path forward, is to fully step into what you know, to own your intuition completely, to trust the feeling that told you they were watching, because it was right. It's been right all along, and it will continue to be right as you move forward into whatever comes next. They know you know now, and that changes the game. They can't pretend anymore. Can't hide behind friendly faces and concerned questions, can't mask their observation as coincidence or casual interest. The pretense is gone, the performance is over, and what's left is the raw truth. They've been watching, you've been aware, and now everyone knows that everyone knows. So what happens in this new reality? In this space where the shadows have been dragged into light, where the unspoken has been named, where the game that was never supposed to be acknowledged has been called out, what happens is you get to choose. You get to decide what kind of power you want to claim. You can use your awareness defensively, building walls, cutting people off, isolating yourself further in the name of protection. Or you can use it offensively, not in aggression but in creation. Building something so powerful, so authentic, so undeniably you, that their watching becomes irrelevant, that their studying provides them nothing useful, that their monitoring only shows them someone living free while they remain trapped in their own need to control. You can let their observation make you smaller, or you can let it fuel your expansion. You can let their attention crush you, or you can let it spotlight your truth. The choice has always been yours, but now that you know they know you know, the choice becomes conscious, deliberate, powerful. No more operating in the dark, no more second-guessing yourself, no more wondering if you're imagining things. You know, they know, everyone knows. The surveillance continues, but now it documents your liberation. Every camera captures your sovereignty. Every observer witnesses your power. Every watcher becomes a testament to what happens when consciousness refuses to be controlled. You've turned their entire operation into evidence of your evolution. Their monitoring has become the cosmic record of a soul breaking free from every limitation they tried to impose. Remember how this started, that crawling sensation up your spine, that knowing that someone was watching, that intuition that wouldn't shut up no matter how hard you tried to silence it. It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't anxiety, it wasn't your imagination. It was your soul's alarm system, detecting interference in your field. It was your higher self screaming at you to wake up before they finish programming you. It was the part of you that remembers what freedom feels like, refusing to let you forget. And now look where you are. You're not hiding from their gaze, you're performing your truth under it. You're not shrinking from their observation, you're expanding because of it. You're not victim to their surveillance, you're the sovereign they can't stop watching, because your very existence proves their system is failing. Every breath you take in your authentic power is another crack in their matrix. Every choice you make from your inner knowing is another glitch in their program. Every moment you live free despite their watching is another soul remembering it can do the same. This is what they never wanted. Not just one person waking up, but one person waking up and refusing to go back to sleep. One person discovering their power and refusing to pretend they don't have it. One person feeling the surveillance and transforming it into rocket fuel for their evolution. Because they know what happens next. They've seen it before in smaller doses, but never like this. Never with someone who turned their watching into a spotlight for truth. Never with someone who made their observation irrelevant through radical authenticity. The cascade has already begun. Can you feel it? Other souls stirring, other consciousness awakening, other chosen ones starting to feel that same crawling sensation you felt. And when they do, when their intuition starts screaming the same truths yours did, they'll find you. Not because you're looking for them, but because souls recognize souls. Frequency finds frequency. Truth attracts truth. And suddenly their carefully maintained isolation protocols fall apart, because awakened beings create networks of consciousness that no surveillance system can infiltrate or control. You weren't supposed to feel them watching. That's the truth. Their entire system depended on remaining invisible, on being the unseen force that shaped reality from the shadows. But your intuition, that wild, untamed, uncontrollable force within you, it felt them anyway. It detected what was supposed to be undetectable. It sensed what was supposed to be beyond sensing. And in that moment of recognition, in that instant when you knew you were being watched, everything changed. Not just for you, for them, for the entire game being played with human consciousness. Because once one person sees the game, others start seeing it too. Once one person calls out the surveillance, others start feeling watched. Once one person refuses to be controlled through observation, others realize control was always optional. You didn't just wake yourself up. You sent out a frequency that's waking others. You didn't just free yourself, you created an escape route for anyone ready to take it. Your intuition didn't ruin everything, it revealed everything. It showed you that you were never alone, but not in the comforting way. In the way that makes your skin crawl until you realize the crawling sensation is your power activating. In the way that makes you question reality until you realize reality was always questionable. In the way that makes you feel crazy until you realize crazy is just what they call people who can see through their systems, and now you can't unsee it, can't unfeel it, can't unknow what you know. The watching continues, but it no longer defines you, it no longer controls you, it no longer limits you. If anything, it confirms what you've always suspected. You're not like the others. You never were. You're something they can't understand, can't categorize, can't control. You're the glitch that's becoming the feature, the error that's becoming the evolution, the problem that's becoming the solution. So let them watch, let them document every moment of your transformation, let them record every instance of your sovereignty, let them observe as you build a reality they can't touch, create a life they can't influence, become something they can't comprehend. Because every second they spend watching you is a second they're witnessing their own obsolescence. Every moment they observe your freedom is a moment they're documenting their own failure. Every instant they study your power is an instant they're recording proof that their system never stood a chance against awakened consciousness. I must interrupt this transmission for just a moment. Are you really chosen? Prove it. It's easy to watch videos about chosen ones. It's another thing to put yourself to the test. If you're still here, that means something, but talk is cheap. Real chosen ones take action. That's why I built Destiny Engine. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve divine justice. You put on the headphones, press play, and watch your enemies choke on the rope their own lies created. If you're done consuming and ready to prove you're chosen, start your destiny engine for $1 today. Join the Obsidian Inner Order live checks and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Ronchen Yuerk, your intuition, that primal knowing they wanted you to doubt, it saved you from a fate worse than being watched. It saved you from never knowing you were being watched. It saved you from sleeping through your own life while they pulled the strings. It saved you from being another unconscious participant in their experiment, and most importantly, it saved you from missing the opportunity to flip the entire game in your favor, because that's what's happening now. The game hasn't ended, it's just reversed. They're still watching, but now they're watching their worst nightmare unfold. A human being who knows they're being watched and doesn't care. A consciousness that sees the surveillance and uses it as motivation. A soul that feels the observation and transforms it into power. You've become the thing they never prepared for, because they never thought anyone would get this far. They never thought anyone would feel them watching, and instead of running, instead of hiding, instead of shrinking, would stand up straighter, burn brighter, live louder. Your intuition didn't ruin their plans by detecting them. It ruined their plans by showing you that you were always more powerful than their surveillance. That consciousness, when fully awakened, when fully aware, when fully embodied, cannot be controlled by external observation. Can't be diminished by being watched. Can't be conquered by being studied. You are living proof that their entire system has a fatal flaw. It only works on people who don't know they're in it. But you know now, and that knowing has become your superpower. That awareness has become your armor. That intuition that felt them watching has become your guide through whatever comes next, because there is a next. This isn't the end of the story. This is just the chapter where you discovered you were never the character they thought you were. You were always the author, and now you're writing a plot twist they never saw coming. The watching continues. Let it. Your performance isn't for them anyway. It's for every soul that's starting to feel what you felt, every consciousness that's beginning to suspect what you suspected, every chosen one whose intuition is starting to scream that something's not right. Your example shows them that feeling is accurate. Your story proves that intuition is reliable. Your existence demonstrates that being watched doesn't mean being defeated. You weren't supposed to feel them watching, but you did, and that feeling, that knowing, that undeniable intuition, it didn't ruin everything, it began everything. Everything is real, everything is true, everything that matters. The old game is over, the new game has begun, and in this game the watchers have become powerful, the observed have become the sovereign, the students have become the teachers. Your intuition was right all along. Trust it. It will guide you through whatever comes next, because what comes next is going to require every ounce of awareness you've developed, every bit of power you've claimed, every drop of sovereignty you've embodied. The watchers are still watching, but now they're watching the revolution they accidentally started, the evolution they inadvertently triggered, the transformation they never meant to catalyze, and it all started with that feeling, that crawling sensation up your spine, that knowing that someone was watching, that intuition that wouldn't let you rest until you acknowledged what you felt. It wasn't comfortable, it wasn't easy, it wasn't what you wanted to feel, but it was exactly what you needed to feel to become who you really are. Not their subject, not their experiment, not their observation project, but a sovereign being whose very existence proves that consciousness cannot be caged, cannot be controlled, cannot be conquered, no matter how closely it's watched. Your intuition didn't ruin everything, chosen one. It revealed that everything they built was always ruined, because it was built on the assumption that humans would never wake up to the game. But you woke up, you felt them watching, and now nothing will ever be the same. Not for you, not for them, not for the countless others who are about to feel exactly what you felt and realize exactly what you realized. The watching continues, but now it's just documentation of